Shwmae a chroeso I Sgwrs, podlediad Consortiwm Canolbarth y De. Yn y podlediad hwn byddwch chi'n clywed y trafodaethau diweddara am bob math o bethau addysg. Hello and welcome to Sgwrs, the Central South Consortium podcast. In this podcast we'll bring you the very latest discussions on all things education.
Hello and welcome to our Foundation Learning podcast. Today we are going to be considering the similarities and differences between the learning environment in nursery and year 2. My name is Ruth Best and I am the area lead for curriculum teaching and assessment for foundation learning at CSC. Today I am joined by Claire Davis, assistant head and foundation learning leader at Cyfarthfa Park Primary School, Merthyr, Nia Waghorn, assistant head and foundation learning leader at Rada Primary in Cardiff, Claire Mathias, foundation learning leader at Gethley Primary School RCT, and Gemma Dyer, year 2 teacher at Gethley Primary School. Thank you all for joining me today.
Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you.
Hello.
Teachers are sometimes unsure of how the learning environment and provision should progress from early years, what similarities and differences there should be. The Welsh Government has provided guidance on effective pedagogy for foundation learning learners. So let's open up the discussion by considering what is the core idea behind the Welsh Government enabling learning guidance.
If I could start by saying, Ruth, that this enabling learning section of Curriculum for Wales Guidance has been developed to support senior leaders and practitioners in schools and settings in the planning, designing and implementing of a pedagogically appropriate curriculum for all learners, to create a supportive, flexible and inclusive learning environment that responds to the developmental needs of children. It emphasises active learning through play, hands-on experiences and fostering children's social and emotional development, which I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about later on. The aim is to ensure that all children can engage with the curriculum in a way that suits their unique learning styles and abilities.
This curriculum does meet the statutory requirements set out by the Welsh Government, and by using this curriculum we can provide children with developmentally appropriate practice with child at the centre. It was created through co-construction by practitioners for practitioners, and the content is presented from the practitioner's perspective, incorporating expertise from across our non-maintained sector, as well as insights from experts in child development and early education.
Thank you both. So the focus is to ensure that schools consider that the pedagogy for younger learners is developmentally appropriate when schools are designing their curriculum. And beside the 12 pedagogical principles, the guidance mentions essential key features, play and play-based learning, being outdoors, observation, authentic and purposeful learning. Can you open that up a little more for our listeners?
For my school, Cyfarthfa Park Primary School, the play and play-based learning module really helped to develop staff's understanding of developing an effective environment. Integral to that was the play continuum of free play, guided play and play-based learning, and that helped change the mindset of staff and the importance of planning and using the environment to engage pupils in purposeful play and learning experiences. And this does look different from nursery to year 3.
Lovely, thank you, Claire. And outdoor learning as well. Claire, have you got anything to say about the outdoor learning environment?
Yeah, and I agree with Claire. In our school, the outdoors is planned for like any other area of our classroom. It's not an add-on. And obviously this looks different throughout the school. Our nursery, reception and year 1, we have constant access and free flow to the outdoors, which I understand not all schools have. Where this looks like a physical environment and a garden environment. But our year 2 and 3, because they don't have direct access, they still give the children the opportunities to have the outdoor access, but it's obviously timetabled.
So I'm the year 2 teacher, and throughout the week myself or my TA will take groups of children into the outdoors, so it could be for planned play or free play activities. So if I was doing maybe measuring and maths, we would go outside and we would physically measure objects rather than doing in the book. So we could be measuring the distance a toy car could travel using different height ramps, or we might also go outside for forest schools activities.
Yeah, the guidance makes it really clear as well that it is essential that practitioners working with these children have an understanding of child development, as well as how they can best meet the needs of young children. My personal belief is that early years is a particularly specialist area of the curriculum, and those adults working within it should continue to develop a deep understanding of how young children learn in order to provide them with the best possible start to their education. If we talk about observing for a second, the emphasis on observing children within this curriculum, really finding out their starting points where we're able to build on the knowledge they already have. I do believe it's only when as adults we're able to observe effectively is that we can really meet our children's needs and really support the progress. It's by observing children carefully to note that progress, the levels of enjoyment and involvement, and really focusing on their attainment and next steps and how we can move that learning forward.
We totally agree with you there, Nia. In our school, all our teachers and TAs are trained in quality observation techniques, child development. And key to our school is, like you said, our staff stay within the foundation phases because they become expertise. They're not moved around the school to PS3 or to Key Stage 2. They stay where the expertise are, their expertise are in foundation phase.
Lovely, thank you. And obviously those 4 features are really, really important. But as well as those, the guidance mentions 3 enablers, which are fundamental for holistic and meaningful learning for all learners, enabling adults, engaging experiences and effective environments. And although these enablers are interrelated and interdependent, and the interplay between them is integral to teaching and learning across Curriculum for Wales, we're going to be focusing on effective environments today, though obviously we'll be bringing in aspects of the others too, because they all contribute to making an effective environment. So before we consider the similarities and differences, it might be helpful to consider what makes an effective learning environment and why is it important?
That's the $1 million question, Ruth, I think. The environment, both indoors and outdoors, as we've already mentioned, should be central to learners' authentic experiences. That word authentic comes up a lot. During this period of learning, exploration of their environment is a key driver for development. And through exploration of their environment, in the local community and beyond, learners begin to develop a sense of belonging, and we'll talk a bit more about that later on, and an appreciation of the world around them. In realising their curriculum, practitioners should consider not only the physical spaces, but also the emotional climate that support learners to achieve their potential. These environments should provide for wide and varied experiences that allow learners to express themselves physically, creatively and imaginatively, and allow them to follow their interests independently or with others. And again, that's where our observations are key. Within an enabling environment, knowledgeable practitioners optimise development and learning potential of every child. Children thrive within environments that support their individual and diverse developmental needs. So knowing your children well and understanding of child development is obviously essential.
As you've said, Claire, effective environments should celebrate and value diversity and demonstrate inclusivity. Getting the learning environment is so important, isn't it? Because 80% of learning comes through the learning environment. It should also promote a sense of belonging, so all learners feel valued and respected and represented.
Yeah, I agree. The emotional climate is vitally important and is as important as the physical climate and the physical environment. And the guidance is very clear about practitioners creating a sense of belonging in their settings. I think it's really important to consider how does it feel to be a child in your setting. From the moment they approach the school in the mornings, what's their experience like? Are there adults waiting to greet them, to smile at them, to welcome them, to acknowledge their adult as well and model those good relationships? Our spaces should be safe and include and represent both our children and families in order to create that sense of belonging. And in my own school, we have each child bring a photograph of their family to display in the classroom, which is a wonderful way of doing this, and not only supports children's transitions, but gives them that home away from home sense as well.
I agree, because our school here, it basically mirrors what you've just said. The developing the sense of belonging is so important to us. From the minute the children and the adults step into the environment, they have that sense of home. And we've made a conscious decision to make our environment inviting for parents, not just the children. We have displays of our families, our own staff family photos around the school, and then, like me at school, the children bring in family photos as well, which are displayed around the school.
Yeah, I've been a huge advocate of communication-friendly spaces for a good many years now, and coined by Elizabeth Jarman, communication-friendly spaces aim to create environments where children feel confident and supported in expressing themselves, which leads to better language development and improved social and emotional skills. A communication-friendly space is calm, ordered, and it's a space where children are able to select what they need from resources available and aren't sort of overwhelmed by that wallpapering, too many resources, lots of clutter. Instead, the use of space and displays are carefully curated to the children's fascinations, interests, and their own lived experiences. You know, the minute you walk into our school, you would notice the neutral aesthetic, and this is very intentional for us at Rada Primary School. The development of the communication-friendly spaces are a huge part of our shared pedagogy, and something that supports our child-centred approach from nursery all the way through to year 6. It's very concerned with how the school feels and what it's like to be a child there. What does it feel like? What does it look like? Even what it smells like is a crucial part to setting the scene for learning and creating that optimal space for learning in your environment. These principles are sort of long embedded in our thinking, and we do our best to promote that calm atmosphere, decluttered, low-level lighting. We've moved away from using any commercial print, and our adults are really purposeful in what they choose to display and put up in their classrooms, making sure that only the essential things are displayed, avoiding cluttering up the walls with wallpapering. And if we do use any print in our environment, we ensure that we involve the children in that as well. Anything we put up on the wall comes from our learners, and the children are part of creating their own environment.
Going back to sort of greeting children on a day-to-day basis, we make sure that staff from each class are outside greeting the children along with the head teacher as well, to sort of create a positive start to the children's morning and make sort of a welcoming atmosphere in our school.
We also give the children a lot of input. They self-register themselves now, so there's no 30 children sitting on the carpet waiting to take the register. They register themselves, they discuss with each other their feelings, and then they go straight to their activities. We also, within our classroom, we have real furniture, we call it, like you'd see at home. We use authentic resources that would also represent things in the home and different cultures and backgrounds.
So, for example, in our book corners, they would have real lamps and sofas. Then we'd have sort of books from all ethnicities, and our role play areas would have real resources, real china, real food.
And just to add here, for what we found works in our school to give the children experiences from home and school, and to create that huge ethos, is that the children send videos via Seesaw, and we have hundreds every week where the children are showing us what they do with their parents and where they go on the weekend, even just if they're just reading a book. And the amount of children that send back those videos, and then what the children get out of those, is phenomenal.
I agree, Claire. That's something we do in our school as well. We use Seesaw quite a lot, and that link with the home and family is key. I'd also like to add as well that there should be flexibility and variety within the environment, and we should be offering that risk and challenge and supporting learners to develop resilience so they feel comfortable to do that and that they have confidence and independence. Just reflecting back on what you've all said, Cyfarthfa Park Primary School is a nurturing school, and nurture is a tried and tested way of relating to children that helps them develop vital social skills, confidence and self-esteem, and become ready to learn. And obviously that's what we want for all our learners. The concept of nurture highlights the importance of social environments, who you are with and not who you are born to, and its significant influence on social and emotional skills, well-being and behaviour. Everything that we do at Cyfarthfa Park Primary School, we base on the 6 principles of nurture. This was developed by educational experts Eva Holmes and Eve Boyd in 1999, and these are the core principles that inform our nurturing culture and ethos and our curriculum. 2 of the principles out of the 6 align really closely with what we're discussing today, namely that the classroom offers a safe space, and secondly, that children's learning is understood developmentally.
I think that's right, Claire. It's important that the children begin to develop these skills in a quality nursery, and in our nursery this is done through modelling and quality interaction by the staff. This approach will continue then all through our classrooms, but is key on having a whole school approach and everybody on board, not just the nursery section. It needs to be a whole school approach.
And as we've said as well, our school is resourced with authentic resources in the role play. So our construction area, the children have access to real wood and hammers and nails, and then they can begin to use them confidently, so safely, independently.
We also have free-flowing access as works for us for the outdoors, which the children can freely access, where they can climb trees, swing on tyres, they use real digging tools, they plant in gardens, and all their learning is done through sort of real-life experiences. As the children have constant access to this, we don't have any sort of the traditional play times anymore. The day runs smoother. You're not stopping and starting saying tidy up. So in our school, we don't tidy up ever. We put things back where they belong. So if they're using the tools, they know where they belong. They don't just leave like our china cups and saucers on the floor. Everything goes back where it belongs, and the day just runs much, much smoother.
Just going to come in there and just mention and allude to what Nia said a bit further on about this doesn't happen overnight.
Oh gosh, no, it's taken years for all staff.
Yeah, we're talking about using china cups and, you know, real resources, but it doesn't happen overnight. And I know Nia spoke about how things take time. It's not just, you know, something that, right, we've decided to do this and that's it. It does take a lot of planning, training of staff and pupils.
And as well, you know, if you haven't got those resources or you haven't got the budget to buy those in, it's something that you can aspire to and look to developing. But using other things at the time instead of those is fine. As you said, Claire, it doesn't just happen overnight. You've got to develop that, and you've all developed that over quite a number of years, haven't you? So.
Oh gosh, it's taken us years, yeah.
Yeah.
And like you said, building the resources up, you know, and we have visitors to the school, and yeah, it's okay to have these plastic things just because we are using the authentic resources. You know, it is okay to have plastic toys.
Yeah, I think we go to lots of charity shops and just find things, or we ask the parents if they got anything to send in, could they donate anything. So we just use a lot of that in our school, don't we? And each class up to year 3 have got their own snack or cooking area, where they prepare their own snack throughout the day. We have sort of a rolling snack area, so they can go to the snack area anytime they want, once a day. And they're responsible, the children are responsible then for the planning and the buying and preparing the snack, and also cleaning up after themselves. So after they finish in the snack area, they've got to wash the dishes and leave the snack areas they found it ready for the next children to use it then.
But again, this is something that's taken time. It hasn't just happened overnight. You know, for a 3-year-old to plan, prepare and wash their dishes, it takes time, it takes modelling So it's not something that, again, would happen overnight.
You've obviously planned your environments to give your children the opportunity to practice these skills from nursery upwards, which is, really great for them. The guidance also states that effective environments should offer opportunities for learners to experience a sense of awe and wonder that should ignite curiosity about the living and non-living world, motivating them to explore, solve problems, and develop their creativity and critical thinking skills. How do you create this in your settings?
In our school, it's very much like what Nia has talked about. We wanted to show that communication-friendly environment. All our classes have similar neutral palettes. Our lighting is similar, our real furniture. Over time, like Claire said, this is not something that's happened overnight. We've created that calmer environment. We often play like soft music in the background just for that calm environment. And as we've said, we have snack areas right up to year 3 where we have a real dining table and chairs. So the children sit down, they learn lots of other skills when they're preparing their snack, but it's just to have that time, sitting, quality time, sitting, talking to their friends, having conversations. We've gone away to having like 30 children sitting on the floor saying, hurry up, have your snack, you've got to go out to play. It's about just the children having the time to sit, downtime, relax, and just enjoy sometimes being with their friends during those snack area times.
And so displays then that are sort of minimal but are purposeful. They're working walls, and when we have photos, like we said, about their families and other photos, they're just the photos that children want to display of themselves. And when we have visitors, we sort of stress it's not about just having Hessian and getting rid of your plastic toys. It's about those resources being authentic and about being purposeful. And visitors do often sort of comment on how calm and engaged and independent the children are as well. And like we said, building up all these resources takes a lot of time, and also changing your environment takes a lot of time as well, and it can't be done overnight.
And the one thing I did as foundation leader, when we were looking and exploring of changing our environments, there was a lot of, which I call a teacher mess everywhere. So we've made a conscious decision that our classrooms are not cluttered with teacher mess. Everything in there is for the children. So our resources are all out, everything is accessible to the children, and things which are in baskets or boxes, they labelled for greater independence for the children.
Going back to the skills you mentioned earlier there, Ruth, at Rada Primary School, we started to implement the occupations. We're very much into a Froebelian practice. And in order to support those integral skills, which we all know lead to the 4 purposes, we have created plenty of opportunity for authentic learning experience through the cookery, through the use of clay, through sewing and weaving, growing, cooking the produce we grow. We're not, as deep down the road, as far down the road as we are with the communication-friendly spaces, but it is extremely effective, and we're really looking forward to driving that further.
That sounds really interesting, Nia, and it sounds from what you've all been saying that your environments are really warm and inviting and setting that ethos for children's learning. And the guidance also says the effective environment will also support mastery by allowing frequent and extended opportunities to practice, rehearse, and embed taught skills in a wide range of contexts.
Yeah, so in our school, Ruth, this obviously looks different in different classes. Our nursery reception in year 1, as I previously said, have direct access outdoors. So we split our classroom and our outdoors into what we call zones. And I am very fortunate that in these classrooms there are 5 adults. So basically our classrooms are split up into 5 zones. Like I said, we'll include the outdoors. And within these zones, there are several invitations to play. So they could be free play, guided play, and planned play activities. And each of these adults would stay in that zone for the whole week, and they would do effective modelling and purposeful interaction and quality observations within those zones. But obviously this would look different when you haven't got those adults.
So in year 1, 2 and 3, we still have zones, but obviously because we've got a lower adult ratio, because of the independence sort of in the nursery and reception classes and the modelled approach of the adults, then we're finding that the children come up more independent and they don't need such a high adult ratio to carry on the same approach. But if there is a new skill or experience being taught in one of the zones, then there would be an adult there sort of modelling and showing them what to do. And then we also use our adults then for observations in those year 1, 2, 3 classes.
And whilst providing mastery skills is essential in the environment, giving the children an opportunity to practice something in different areas, providing opportunities to develop fine and gross motor skills is equally important for fostering overall growth and coordination, isn't it?
Oh, I agree, growth, because we no longer have what you would call, and you'd see the old traditional maths area with a sign up, language area, construction area. We basically would do all these skills crossed. So for example, if it was a fine motor skill, this could be developed in the home corner where they pour in the kettle. It could be done in the snack area where they cut in. So you would no longer see any of those old traditional areas.
And also there's the gross motor skills. They could be developing those by digging in the garden, or swinging on tyre swings, or even just through dance activities.
Yeah, I think that's important, because I think what we've got to remember here is the process of developing these skills, because obviously children in the lower foundation classes, they need to develop, say, their shoulder muscles first through the gross motor, then they need to develop their wrist actions, and again this could be done through pouring jugs, climbing and pegs and play-doh. But obviously by the time they go to upper foundation classes, they've had all these skills developed, so then they could go to the more formal writing of letters and all more formal tasks.
Lovely, thank you. We've discussed the key features of an effective learning environment, but how does this translate into practice? How your areas are designed? How do you plan for learning?
It sounds there, Claire and Gemma, that your provision is quite similar to ours, very cross-curricular. The children are able to develop skills across the board in the learning environment. Our learning environments are based around 4 key areas, and adults plan for the skills in those areas. So book corner, a role play, a creative area and a block play area, where skills would be considered before activities. So in the book corner, we'd use it to develop a love of reading, whereas further up the school in year 2, it might be used for research purposes for older children. And the same with the other same with the other areas of learning. So we streamlined them in order to encourage the children to use their imagination, but also for them to apply their skills in situ. So we want them, by the time they get to year 2 and they have less direct time to spend with an adult, to use their problem solving and use their integral skills to decide on where the area they want to be to complete an activity is, and where they can locate the correct resources in order to carry out that work themselves.
Yes, and I think, as I spoke about earlier, we call them zones here. And with these zones, like I said, there's an adult there every week. We sit together as staff in every class right up to year 3. So we sit in our individual classes with all our staff, all our LSAs, and we talk about what's happened in their zone that week. We have professional dialogue about what they've observed, if they have seen anything with our focus children, and basically then how we can plan to move the learning forward for these children. Sometimes the zones are not changed. Sometimes the staff have changed them during the week. There's not like it's been changed every week. It could have been changed that day, or we've gone with the children's interest that has been changed 3 times that week. It's basically having that adult there knowing when and what to change. And that's basically all our planning. It's very simple from nursery right up to year 3. It's basically how we're doing it and why we're doing it.
So, for example, in year 2, the children could be in the role play cafe, and they could have been developing their money skills and giving change for £1. So, for the following week, rather than change the whole activity, we could just have a half price sale using the same resources. So the how then would be using money in the role play cafe, and the why would be to develop their understanding of money or giving change of £1, and using real life experiences then in their play.
Yeah, it's interesting listening to you, because there's lots of similarities in my school, but we still have what I suppose would be the more traditional areas of provision. We do have a maths area. There's not a big sign saying come in the maths area, this is the maths area. We have a book area, but that doesn't mean that we're only expecting mathematical development in the maths area. The areas of provision for us are really set up so that resources can be stored, so that children know where to access resources, where staff know where to access resources. But these resources can be moved, and children are encouraged to use them in other areas of provision. So it's really about the storage and children knowing, and Nia mentioned something like that in RADA, that children know where those resources are so that they can access them to, for problem solving, for a task that they might have had. One thing that we have to do in my school, and something we sort of alluded to, I suppose, is space. We have to share provision between our classes. Our school is an old Victorian building. We don't have any space at all. So our year 1 classes share provision, our year 2 classes share provision, and our 2 reception classes share provision as well. And we do that as well because we can share enabling adults, and our provision can also be more effective. So we spend more time as a team.
And that's important, isn't it? That everybody is a team.
It's really important that you have that time and everybody has buy-in and knows what's happening within the learning environment and understands their role within that. And you all are planning in slightly different ways, and it's important for everyone to realise that there's not just one way of organising the provision. Schools can organise the learning environment to suit their space and their learners, making sure they consider the key features mentioned in the guidance. But however they organise it, they do need to ensure that it's progressive across the year groups to meet the changing needs of learners. Nia, you mentioned earlier some similarities in how your learning environments are planned. What other similarities would you expect to see in the learning environment from nursery to year 2?
In our school, Ruth, we have talked about the similarities, like our furniture, our lighting, our resources. But for us, what we wanted to make sure, we had consistencies too throughout our foundation classes. So as I've said, we don't say tidy up. We all say we're putting things back where we belong. We don't have old traditional breaks. We go right through because we have the access outside. We have rolling snack. Everybody puts evidence on seesaw. And our planning is the same. It may look a little bit different, but as we said, all our planning is the how and the why.
And sort of resources in the classes could be similar as well. We've got loose parts to construct with and build in all of the classes. There's opportunities for sand and water as well, but there'd be differences then in how that would look like between a nursery and year 2 class.
Even our year 3 children have the opportunity, and I think for free play, and I think this is what's important as well, that all our learners have the opportunity for free play. But again, this will look different because as the children obviously get older, they are obviously more independent. but all our children have the opportunity to express themselves through their play, through their creative. So we've made a decision that all our classes, even up to year 6, have the art areas, have the, a stage, have music areas, so the children can be creative.
Yeah, building on what I said earlier, for us, we wanted our resources to be well organised and easily accessible. That's something which is a sort of non-negotiable for all classes throughout the school. We are developing more authentic and appealing resources, that awe and wonder, so that the children come in and they want to play with those resources. We also have our areas developed so that we can try and encourage independence as best as we can. And we do use technology to do this, and Seesaw being a vehicle really for us to develop our independence. It's important to keep some resources consistent, but also respond to children's interests as well. So by bringing in resources that would stimulate children's curiosity. As I said earlier, we are a nurture school, and it's not just by name. We do try and live and breathe that in our school. And there are certain criteria that we have to have from nursery all the way up to year 6. We have to have a safe space for children so that they can regulate. We have a high level of ALN learners, so this is really important for us. A birthday display, so we have a birthday display, and adult staff are on there as well, because birthdays are important, and for belonging. All classes have a zones of regulation, so this is a check-in centre in our class, but it's also about checking in with their feelings so that we know how children are feeling. And our environment is communication rich so that children can express their feelings, and this goes up to year 6, as I said.
Lovely, thank you. You've all said there are several similarities in how the learning environment is structured across these years. And you've mentioned that in nursery, as in year 2, the emphasis is still on creating an active learning environment. Both stages encourage play-based learning, where children can explore, experiment and problem solve. We've talked a lot about the similarities, but what are some of the differences?
So play changes over time as children gain in experience and knowledge. Free play is a vehicle for learning in the earlier years, with practitioners engaging in guided play as and when they see opportunities. That doesn't mean that free play is eradicated. As Claire mentioned in Gethley, that free play is still valued up in year 2 as well. It just changes as to the amount of time children would have free play. In the later years, to meet learning goals, there will be greater emphasis on guided and play-based learning. However, all children require time for free play, as I've said, whatever their age. That understanding of child development and the need to adapt the needs of the learner, we've said that quite a few times today. There are physical differences as well, especially in my school. So the larger spaces are in our nursery. We have a larger home corner. And then as the children move up into year 2, we have smaller role play settings, and we focus more on transactional role play and fantasy role play then. But we do rotate the different types of role play throughout the year in our year 1 and year 2 classes. So we'll have a domestic, transactional and a fantasy role play. And then there will be larger creative areas in nursery and reception. So children will have really large sheets of paper, big easels, larger brushes. When they get to year 2, that would sort of be a smaller section where we'd have sort of, finer detailed creative resources.
And I think for us, lots of people ask us about the number of adults, the differences of obviously the number of adults in the classes. And I suppose the biggest difference would be the adult ratio is much lower in year 1, 2 and 3 than the nursery reception class. But we feel due to the effective teamwork that we've got throughout our foundation classes, by the time they actually do transition into year 1, they no longer need the same support of adults that they would in the nursery and reception, because obviously we have effective modelling done by our staff. The environment and experience in the nursery reception has been well thought about and planned for. So here, the children within our lower foundational classes, they really develop their independent skills. So they're ready then to transfer these into year 1 and year 2. So when people say, oh, but we haven't got this amount in adults, I think it's key that obviously they need all the role models, the mimicking, all those in the early foundation classes before then obviously you can transfer this into the year 1 classes.
So going back to sort of resources and things, in the lower classes, the children might have sort of use, pass, construct and build, and this would be very much free play in nursery reception, but then in year 2 and 3, there would be more of a process involved using these resources. So they would be planning a design, drawing a design, solving problems, and maybe making something that they could roll or build something using measurements. So it's how they're using the resources would be different.
And I suppose, for example, then in the nursing reception, if they were exploring in the water, they'd be using sort of different materials and you're giving them the time to do this on their own. But in year 2 and 3, in our classes, they're given more of a task, so which we call skills challenges or skills stars. So it would, for example, be how many containers could fill up this pot with non-standard measurements. So they're not just like exploring and experimenting, they're actually given a task to actually complete in that water or sand area.
So skills have to be taught more explicitly in the upper foundation classes, but there is still room for play and an open sort of playful mindset with every learning experience as well. So in free play, they're learning so many more skills, like being creative, using their imagination, collaborating, communicating, exploring, being curious, and sometimes just having fun, really, even in the year 2 classes.
Yeah, fun is important, isn't it? I think we forget about that sometimes. We all need a bit of fun. Pupils in nursery and reception in our school access aid provision that are primarily created by the enabling adults. But for us, by the time they get to year 1, pupil influence plays a larger part in the development of the environment. Weekly, there's a Feedback Friday, we call it, whereby the pupils will discuss the success of their learning in guided play. They will then make suggestions as to what could be added to areas of provision to develop their learning, so pupils are integral to that learning experience.
So there is progression within the learning environment across foundation learning. So how do you as leaders ensure that you've got that progression in your schools?
Again, Ruth, I think this is something that takes time and something you have to continue to revisit as a team. So regularly discussing environments in phase meetings, taking that approach where everyone's door is open if they've developed a particular area that's working well, bringing the points to share and celebrate to team meetings once a week or however frequently you have them. Something that's really crucial for me, and I think for the other ladies in the podcast as well, is that adults really understand how significant their roles are. So when we are considering moving staff around, making sure that those staff that in foundation learning, particularly in the early years, really like the early years, really want to be there, really want to develop their skills in that area, and that we spend a lot of time and give lots of opportunity for professional learning within the early years.
I think professional learning is crucial. I think everybody needs to understand, like you say, their role, but also we've mentioned child development, thinking about that, what the next steps in learning are. It's really important for practitioners to understand that.
I think as well, Ruth, it's important, I've talked about a safe space for children, but we need a safe space as well for adults. We need to have a culture where we can share. It's not critical, it's supportive. I think, years gone by, we'd have learning walks and you'd go in and look at people's classrooms and it would feel that it would be done to you. Whereas now we're trying to promote in our school, that feeling of support. So when you do have somebody come into your classroom, that it's not a negative thing to be given advice. it is sort of like that sort of celebration of what we do well as well, and sharing that with everybody.
I agree with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because at the moment we our learning works are observations now. We call them what do we call them? Sharing good practice.
Yeah.
So tomorrow now we're going into each other's class to share the good practice. It's not about just observing. It's basically sharing everything and sharing what we think is good.
And that comes back to as well, Ruth, our community, our foundation learning community. You know, I've learned so much from the practitioners on the podcast today. You know, I've been to RADA, taken so much away from that. Claire and Gemma presented on our professional learning. I've taken things from that as well, and about us sharing what we do. And I think that again is how we develop that our learning environment and that progression, you know, throughout, by sharing with others and that school to school approach.
I think that's absolutely key, Claire. I think we're always at practitioners. We need to be reflective, looking at our practice, look at what's working, look at what we can change, because at the heart of it is our learners, and we need to make sure that we've got the best provision and the best learning environment that suits their needs, don't we?
I agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for sharing these insights today. It's interesting to see how the learning environment evolves from nursery to year 2, all while maintaining key principles like play, independence and inclusivity. It's not so much the difference in the resources, but a change in expectation and how the environment is enhanced so learners can use the resources to stimulate their thinking skills at their developmental level in order to move their learning forward. And if you're providing opportunities to practice and embed skills and apply knowledge that has previously been taught, it stands to reason that this would need to be at a developmentally appropriate level. Teachers need to consider the learning first and then think of the activities. And I think that the why and how that you mentioned, Claire, would really support them with that. Well, that's all we have time for today. So a big thank you to Claire, Nia, Claire and Gemma for joining me. And thank you too for tuning in. We hope it's been useful and has helped you reflect on your own learning environment. But for now, it's goodbye.
Diolch am wrando ar y benod hon o Sgwrs. Cofiwch ein dilyn ar Twitter a Facebook, tanysgrifio ein sianel YouTube, ymuno yn cymunedau ar ein gwefan a darllen ein bwletin ysgolion wythnosol am y newyddion diweddaraf. Thanks for listening to this episode of Sgwrs. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, join our online communities via our website, and read our weekly school bulletin for the latest news. Hwyl am y tro. Bye for now.